impacts anything at all. Or do you need to be anyway?
My laptop is muted, but no,
Okay.
I shouldn't be muted otherwise. I'll pull this microphone.
Now you sound good. Yeah.
Okay, good. So welcome everybody to the first quarterly meeting of 2025. And I'd like to actually ask people to introduce themselves. And we'll start with Amanda, our newest representative from the DNR.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda Dernberger. I am a regional planner for Minnesota DNR, and I'm serving as a technical committee member.
Thanks, Amanda. Welcome. I'm John Amfinson. I am the vice chair, but I'm also the Elk River to Hastings commissioner.
Hello, everyone. Carl Samp. I am the regional commissioner from Brainerd to Elk River.
Hi, David Kelleher, appointee from the Minnesota Historical Society.
Hi, I'm Diane Henry Wagenstein. I'm not a member, just support staff for the MRPC from LCC, the Legislative Coordinating Commission.
Megan Volke, also with Legislative Coordinating Commission.
And I'll jump onto the screen online. I'll call out people in order I see them on my screen, so you don't have to worry about who jumps in when. Chris, I'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. Chris Miller, director for the commission. Sorry I can't be there with you in person today due to some circumstances that came up, but good to see you all.
Marnie.
Good afternoon. Karnowski, and I'm the appointee for the Department of Transportation.
Marnie, you are breaking up, so I'm not sure what the audio issue there was.
It's continuous. I came into the office specifically because I thought it was just at home, but we'll work on it.
So Marnie is with MnDOT, so thank you. Ann.
Hello, everyone. Ann Lewis, Commissioner at Large.
Grant.
Good afternoon. Grant Wilson, Minnesota DNR Central Region Director and DNR's appointee.
Great. Carol.
Hi, everyone. Carol Zoff with Minnesota Department of Transportation.
And last but not least, actually, we got Peter. Thank you.
Certainly. Hello, all. Peter McDonough, Senior Landscape Architect. I'm in the same unit.
Yeah, a little echo there. Peter, thanks.
Sure.
I don't see anybody just on the phone. I think we got everybody. So Chris, do you want to do a roll call for the record?
We sure can do that. And I'll just walk through. If you've already introduced yourself, you do not need to. Again, we'll just go through the list as I have it before me. So Sally Fineday from Lake Itasca to Grand Rapids is not present. She let me know that she would not be able to join us today. Megan Christensen, Grand Rapids to Brainerd. Also, I do not see Megan present as of yet. Carl Samp, Brainerd to Elk River, introduced himself, is present. John Amfinson, Elk River to Hastings Region and Vice Chair, is present and introduced himself. Kate Carlson, Hastings to Iowa Border, is not present with us. Senator Housley and Senator Hoffman, not present. Senator Hoffman had a conflict come up. Senator Housley may still be joining us. Representative Mamani Hiltzley is not with us today. She is your new appointee from the DFL, from the House, District 38A, and so she will be joining you coming up in the future, but very newly appointed within the last couple of days, so not surprising that she's not here with you today. We do have an open house seat that will be filled, so we do not have someone from that seat at this time. Paul Huguenin, Department of Agriculture, is not present. He had a conflict come up. Lisa Havelka from Explore Minnesota Tourism is not present. She had a conflict this afternoon. David Kelleher, Minnesota Historical Society, is present live in person today. Grant Wilson, Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, is with us on Zoom and did introduce himself. Marnie Karnowski, Department of Transportation, is present with us on Zoom as well. Ann Lewis, at-large member, is present via Zoom. Those are the voting members on our roll. You do not have a quorum at this time, Mr. Vice Chair. I will drop you a note or raise a hand if that changes. On to our technical members, we had Amanda Dernberger from DNR, present in person, introduced herself. Carol Zoff from the Department of Transportation, also Peter McDonough from the Department of Transportation, both present via Zoom. Tucker Blythe from the National Park Service is not with us today. Diane Henry Wangenstein and Megan Volke from the Legislative Coordinating Commission are present in person today. Thank you so much for everything on this meeting to you both. And I, Chris Miller, your staff member, am present on Zoom. So there's a modified roll call for you. For the record, Mr. Vice Chair, and again, no quorum present at this time.
Thank you, Chris. So we don't have a quorum, so I'm not going to call for a motion to approve the minutes and the agenda. But if anybody has looked at the minutes and has any comments, I would take those for future reference and corrections. Anybody have any additions or corrections to the yeah, Carol.
Thank you. I just wanted to report out that I received a call from Holly Slagle expressing deep appreciation for the work that you did to recognize her term as the MnDOT Scenic Byway Coordinator and the support that she's given to the commission over the years. So she was very deeply touched by that, and I just wanted to share that appreciation with you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol, for that update. Fantastic. It's funny, Chris, I was looking for you next to me.
Over somewhere else, yeah.
Yeah. So commission business. I assume we can still get our budget report.
And yes, I can take questions on that as you wish. Ann Lewis, your treasurer, is also with you. The budget report is on page 6 of your meeting packet. And Ann, would you like to start with any comments?
Thank you, Chris. I think I'm going to call everyone's attention to the footnotes. I always feel like the meat of everything is actually in the footnotes, not in the budget itself. We have $7,964.25 to carry over. So when you look at our budget that starts at 78,000, we have a little bit more that we're working with. And also we will be considering, I believe we will be considering some of the questions of printing the maps and that kind of thing. So keeping that in mind as we look at this is important. Also, the notes in here say that the invoice from the National MRPC dues was expected soon, and I believe that actually arrived. Did it not, Chris?
Correct. So that invoice came in this week.
So that is actually underway. So, and I believe we already have, or we have requested quotes on the printing, but we don't know where that's going to fall at this point. Those are things to consider as you look at this budget. If there's anything you have to add to it, Chris, besides that, otherwise it looks in really good shape. And from my perspective, with only, I don't know how many months there are left to go, but not a lot of months yet left to go. So
certainly. Thank you, Ann. And correct, this budget does reflect the regular, quote unquote, regular base budget plus carryover from the prior fiscal year. Your first priority for this fiscal year, once again, this new one, was getting through the annual meeting that you hosted so well in Winona last fall. And so costs did come in under budget for that. And some things like that, and quarterly meetings being largely via Zoom, some other items like that mean that you do have some funding to put toward map printing. And we'll talk more about that later in the agenda. And the subcommittee working on that did advise that the commission go ahead and print maps with the funding that is available right now, because it's, a little more uncertain what will be going forward. But because of those items that you see before you, map printing is likely. We'll talk more about that later. Happy to take questions if you have them.
Any questions on the budget? I see a lot of heads shaking on the screen and in the room. Thanks, Chris and Ann, for that update. And I look forward to hearing about the map printing. So let's see, we got the budget report, and regional and meetings and elections for the fall of 2025. Chris, you want to give us an update?
I will take that. I would also welcome Megan Christensen to the meeting. I see that she has joined. Hi, Meg, we see you. Thanks for being here. On to the regional meetings and elections. This is kind of a general information item, but terms for regional commissioners in 3 regions will be ending on December 31st of 2025. They are Headwaters Northwood, so Lake Itasca to Grand Rapids, Crossings region, which is Grand Rapids to Brainerd, and Scenic region, which is Brainerd to Elk River. Those terms will be ending December 31st. This is the first time we're going through a cycle of the new 4-year staggered terms that were changed in statute a couple years back. They had been 2-year terms. A change was made, and so at that time that the change was made, end dates were put on the current commissioner positions to kind of help roll this all out as that change takes place. So those 3 regions will be up for election in December or by December 31st. Terms for the Metro and Bluffs regions then are scheduled to end on December 31st, 2027, 2 years later. So at that time, elections would be due in those areas. That will put you into your new cycle where you're going to have some new elections every 2 years. So that helps to allow for continuity of membership and things like that. The process also changed slightly in that recent statute change. Regional committees will now make recommendations back to the MRPC, and you as a commission then become the appointing authority and formally appoint the member. So if there'd be any changes that would take place later, you'd need to go back out for a different election, someone needs to leave, whatever the case may be, the commission becomes the appointing authority. So that does add a little bit of time consideration to the process. You would want to be acting on that at your November meeting. So we would need to be having these regional meetings and elections enough in advance of that to get you that information. So that's what I have to share. It's been a while because we've been in transition now, so we have not elected new members for a while. Some of you may have been wondering, oh my gosh, is this term ever coming up anytime soon? So this is your chance, but we hope you all still are interested, of course. Question for all of you on this would be if you have a preference in meeting format, and that might largely depend on budgetary issues going forward in the new fiscal year, new biennium too. But years ago, several years ago, we did in-person meetings in the regions, and we would go out. At that time, it was Carol and I often going out to meet with committees and have elections. Over the past few years with COVID-19 and things like that underway, we went to Zoom. Hi, Kate, welcome. We'll record you as being here too.
So sorry I'm late. I had a interview, so exciting.
Oh, that sounds very exciting. We're glad to have you. And so
Chris,
we were just talking
have a
about
quorum
regional commissioner terms. Let me count that again, Mr. Vice Chair. That is quorum. Thank you for asking.
Yay.
Great, thank you for making quorum.
You got it. So would you like me to continue with that? I was going to
Yes.
request feedback next, and then if you'd like to go back for approval of minutes and such, Mr. Vice Chair, you could certainly do that. So regional meetings had been in person at one point in time, switched to Zoom with considerations of the pandemic, have stayed Zoom. I don't know if any of you in the group have a preference on how you'd like to see that going forward. One comment there are benefits to both approaches. In person is wonderful. We have also seen though that when you do in-person meetings, and for example, if you hold the meeting in Bemidji, you will tend to attract Bemidji folks to that meeting. If you hold it in Lake City, you will have Lake City representatives. And so that's awesome, but then you don't necessarily get the full representation from the region. Zoom gives you a bit more of a chance to do that. It also obviously cuts down on travel costs, room reservations, things like that, but there are benefits both ways. We have done this both ways. There is some time here. You could consider this before your next meeting, but if you have thoughts on that, I'd be happy to take them now as we start to plan. Anyone?
Chris, this is Carl. Any chance of doing hybrids?
I'm not sure on that, on what the technology requirements would be. Diane, can you help me on that?
Sure. It depends. Like, if you remember, we did a hybrid meeting when we're at Fort Snelling. So it depends on where the place is. If they have Wi-Fi or not, everybody would need to bring a laptop and have headphones and participate through that, So it depends on the facility, but certainly possible.
Okay, so Diane, just to follow up on that, so that means then, and I know we've been through this before, and now I'm recalling, these would be meetings that are considered full open public meetings that are posted on the LCC webpage that have to have the same considerations or similar ones that we would for formal meetings.
Yeah, yes, please, yeah.
So that, Carl, impacts us a bit. So we can certainly look at that, but we'd have to make sure that we're meeting all those requirements as Diane was kind of outlining them.
I'm sorry, my thoughts were just on a regular commission meeting. You're talking about those regional meetings. No, not necessarily so that they need to be hybrid. They can be hybrid, probably has a greater participation in it.
Okay.
And probably preferable if we could. I mean, nowadays it's pretty low tech that we've kind of figured out this, right? Yeah, so not necessarily so, I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks, Carl. We'll look into what that would maybe involve. Anyone else have thoughts on that?
Can I ask 2 questions? One, we're looking at like September, October in order to be ready for action in the November meeting.
Yeah, likely.
Okay.
And this is new. So I
Yeah.
believe the statute does say that representatives do continue to serve until a successor is appointed.
Sure.
But if you went much longer than that, you'd be pretty far into 26. So yes, I think we'd be looking at an October to early November timeframe needing to get this done.
Yeah, or possibly September, but basically after school starts and Labor Day's over and we're past that shoulders, the
I
high
prefer,
season.
I might suggest for all of you after Drive the Great River Road month, just because of the push that usually involves. So I'd say
Okay.
September possibly, but more likely October into that early November. Yeah.
And then the second question to Diane's, was that an offer to send LCC staff to help us with the hybrid?
Maybe,
Just-
I would have to talk to our director, but maybe. Sorry.
Okay.
We'll look into those options. Thanks for the suggestion on that, Carl, and the questions, Carol. We've got time here, so it's a good time to just start opening this, discussion on possibilities.
Yeah,
And
Chris,
to give everyone kind of a heads up. Thank you.
Chris, is John. I was going to ask the hybrid question too. I mean, because it kind of it solves the problem of too local, too general. And if we don't go hybrid, we still face the same problem. And I think we're going to a hybrid world in many ways. So it'd be good to check it out.
Cool. Thank you. That makes sense. So we'll get
Any other
back to you
comments?
on some options. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. So now that we have a quorum, did you have a question, Ann?
Well, I was just going to put in a vote for hybrid or in person because I think we gain something by being in a community somewhere, and just the effort to let people know that we are there is worth a lot, and that it answers the question, who the heck are we? So I think hybrid or in person, not going totally Zoom would be my preference.
I see a lot of heads nodding yes. Peter.
I also would agree with Chris about moving the vote to October because the 10-state MRPC is held in September, second, third week of September. So that combined with Drive the Great River Road can make that September a very packed month. Thank you.
All
right. Thanks, Peter. Yep. I think there's consensus on that. Anybody else? Now, Chris, I'll go back to the fact that we have a quorum and I would entertain a motion and vote for approving the minutes and the agenda.
So moved.
And David, you want a second? David seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Great. Now we can jump down to the National Great River Road.
Well,
And
let me, do we need to approve the budget, Chris?
well,
Honestly, sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. So I kind of defer to Diane on that one. If this is a mid-year budget and there aren't being changes made to it, it's not necessarily out of the ordinary.
I'd agree. I agree. It's more of an update.
okay, this was an
Thanks.
update, something we need to
Okay,
vote
thanks.
on. Would we need to vote on how we spend the money on the maps? Is that an action if we're gonna spend a big piece of this budget on the maps?
So the MRPC, the commission itself, oh, I'm sorry, Chris probably could answer this, but you've left that delegation to the chair.
Okay.
You know, the authority to the chair to enter into agreements, into contracts, to work on, to approve expenditures and stuff like that. This is a pretty casual group, you know, as well. You can certainly, I think the chair would take, you know, like indication from the commission strongly, you know, and you know, want to fulfill the commission's, the members, you know, wishes and needs on it. We're not anticipating this to be hugely expensive on this print of the maps, but Chris could expand on that. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, oh, absolutely correct. And it should be, we'll be having those quotes come in. We'll talk a little bit more about this during that section of the agenda, but that was the determination made at the committee meeting that the chair does have authority to proceed. And so to this point, she has proceeded with authorizing us to request information from partners on their desired quantities so that we have information to request quotes. We'll be requesting those quotes in the coming next couple of weeks, and we'll be coming back then with that pricing, working with LCC and going back to the chair then for final approval. So later on in the agenda, if you would like to make a motion endorsing that, that would certainly be up to all of you, but that is the process that has taken place so far.
Great, thanks, Chris and Diane. So now let's jump to the National Great River Road and any updates from members. Senator Housley's not here. I wanted to provide just a couple updates. One was that the national meeting will be in Louisiana this year, sometime in September. We had set dates for a national meeting in La Crosse with the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative, but then they changed their plans. And so we are still set, I believe, for Louisiana. I'm not sure where in Louisiana just yet. I've tried to get an answer on that, but I don't have it yet. And then I just wanted to call out the fact that, oh, go ahead, Kate, maybe you have news.
I was going to say in the marketing committee meeting, I have in my notes, they said St. Francisville, Louisiana.
Yes. Yes.
No way.
Way.
St. Francisville is in the middle of nowhere. A wonderful place. I've stopped there several times on my cruise boat trips. So I have a whole port preview on St. Francisville. So I'll get back there. Yeah. So,
Do we have dates on that?
do we have dates, Kate?
I don't have
What's
any
the
written
nearest
down in my
city to fly
notes.
into?
I was also on that meeting, Mr. Vice Chair. I wrote down tentatively September 10th through the 12th. I am not sure that's firm, however. That was maybe just a draft.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard too. The
Great.
10th
So that could actually
to the
work out.
12th. That's Suzanne gave me the dates.
Well, I wrote those dates down so that could fit well with if the MRCTI meeting is going to be in Minneapolis on the 16th to the 18th now, maybe some of us could catch that meeting as well. Good update. Wow. So just the other
John,
note
16th
is,
to the 18th?
huh?
I
So
just
just
wanted to
the
clarify.
other update I wanted to just let people know about was that, and I think you saw Chris's email on this, is that Representative Martin Graber from Iowa passed away. He had been a big supporter of the Parkway Commission from Fort Madison, Iowa. And I mean, they kind of suffered a double blow in Fort Madison. They have a wonderful historic fort there, but due to some deterioration, significant deterioration, they've torn most of it down, are gonna tear the rest of it down and hopefully be able to rebuild it. It was a fantastic place to stop on cruise trips and just on the Great River Road. And I know that they've dedicated that if people want to donate funds to help rebuild the fort, that's what it'd be in honor of a Representative Martin Graber from Iowa.
Mhm.
That's my update from the national level. Anybody, Ann, anything else? Anybody else?
That's what I know as well.
So I'm going to jump into the marketing committee. We got one update from y'all already. You all are working my Southern speech. Any others from marketing?
Kate, would you like to share? Or would you like me to share and jump in?
I'll just share what's in my notes and then you jump in case you got more than me. Most of it was talking about the America 250 promotions, obviously kicking off on July 4th of this year and continuing for the full year. Suzanne welcomed any and all content for the national office to utilize. We kind of talked about the American Revolution and what each state's role kind of was, and that could potentially be some content, articles written for the newsletter, etc. So I think maybe from the Minnesota perspective, maybe doing a little bit of a deep dive and thinking strategically about from, a storytelling perspective, what we could share. Suzanne did share that the grant was submitted and we won't hear for quite some time if we get it. That's what I had in my overall notes. Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. And along with that America 250 celebration, they talked about maybe planning to do a 250 things to do along the Great River Road campaign as part of that. So states will likely be asked to contribute content on that. We'll be watching for more details, but something to start thinking about. So that might be coming your way. And I know, David Kelleher, you're involved with the America 250 side of things for culture and heritage as well. So I'm guessing there might be some partnerships coming on that. Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it.
David, you were going to jump in there.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Anfinson. So it's on the America 250 stuff, Minnesota has a commission. I think all states and territories now have commissions, and our commission is a governor's committee, and members have been appointed. We still have a couple of legislators that need to be appointed, but the group has had a few discussions, but doesn't have any firm concrete plans at the moment, but is really generating ideas of things to do. So as we all on this commission and other places hear of ideas that other groups are doing, like 250 things along the Great River Road, that's awesome. We can feed those into what the state committee is doing and cross promote them and learn about them. So I can keep you all posted on what we're doing here in Minnesota. And then again, keep the communication going between the various national committees and what we're doing here.
Thanks, David.
John, can I ask just David, just a question? This falls under then the governor's, the executive department. Is that correct? Is there a chair for it? Is there somebody to write?
Yeah, there are co-chairs. The Minnesota Historical Society is providing administrative support to the governor's committee, so that's why we know a bunch about it. But they're really just getting off the ground. So there are co-chairs, a gentleman from Rochester and person from Farmington.
So would it be appropriate for the Minnesota MRPC to write a letter of support and offer to be helpful if they are considering anything in the 250th around the Mississippi River, and outlining our historic links to events on Minnesota Links, Minnesota Historic Events on the Great River Road. Would that be an appropriate overture at this time or waiting for further development, in your opinion?
I think it would be okay anytime to submit that letter or email or communication of interest. I think that makes perfect sense to do that. In other words, just saying we're here and we want to be part of this.
I just always think getting in on the ground floor is better than waiting until they're, 3/4 of the way down the track with a plan, and then somebody else who represents the Mississippi River has gotten in there and they'll say, oh, well, we've already got somebody like that. So doing something that we might send now, and I'd be happy to work on a draft of that, or I hope I could get that kind of a thing together, maybe with Chris's help or John's help, and see if we could find the person that we need to send that to. Would that be an appropriate next step?
I can certainly put you and us in touch with the people who are the co-chairs and also help collaborate with getting a message that might resonate with the committee.
Might be appropriate. Thank you very much, David. Appreciate that.
Thanks, David. And this is a direct tie to the Culture and Heritage Committee, because we've also talked about, what a way to promote culture and heritage is taking advantage of the America 250 recognition. So, David, I'd be happy to help any way I can on that. And the Mississippi River is the conduit of American expansion in this region anyway, in the whole valley. So it's got to play a central role of some kind.
One way to think about this is the 13 original colonies, of course, have activities coming up next month, practically, in Massachusetts and other places. So those states have some obvious ties to 1776 and the years surrounding that. While there were lots of people here in 1776 in Minnesota, we were indigenous land and under various flags over that time. One of the ways that we've been thinking about this is not just what happened in 1776, but what happened in the 250 years since 1776, and what are some of the themes that emerged from that. Our national group of historical organizations, the American Association for State and Local History, has a sort of handbook toolkit with 5 themes that they are using and a lot of state organizations are using. And I'm going to forget the 5 themes, but they're things like unfinished revolution, power of place, things like that we at the Minnesota Historical Society are thinking about those themes as a way for us to figure out how we're going to commemorate this work. And I'll just stop there because I could go on for a while.
No, that's good, because we had transitioned into the Culture and Heritage Committee report anyway. So unless there was something else from marketing, but I think it's all tied together. So thanks for that update. And I really do want to figure out how we can take advantage of it. If there's 250 things to do, I'm wondering if since Minnesota has the most mileage, do we get more of the 250 proportional to mileage that you have? So
we can start.
Yes, we can start the list. But we have many, all of our interpretive centers on the Great River Road are part of that story. We just have to tell it. So the other thing from the Culture and Heritage Committee, and Peter, if you have some knowledge on this, I would like you to speak to it. So we had Francis Shelf out from Wisconsin, who is the co-chair of the Transportation Committee, join the Culture and Heritage Committee, because his committee is meeting monthly right now to develop a database of signage that is, if you're on the Great River Road, there's 3 basic signs you need to have. It should be out there for the Great River Road traveler to see, wayfinding signs to get where they want to. If they're not on the Great River Road directly, how much more signage is needed? And so they're really trying to build this database. They've actually, on the Mississippi River Commission members site, there is a tab that you can go to and start filling that in by state and working on that. And so this took up most of our committee meeting, or a lot of it, and it was, I think it's a really good effort to help people drive the Great River Road and find their way to our interpretive centers. Peter, are you working with Francis on that at all, or have you started doing that?
Sure. Thank you, John. So that is one of the major items. And although Francis has called for monthly meetings, the turnout has been very, very low. So we had our fourth quarter meeting, and we have our first quarter meeting is next Friday, the 28th, which I might add is my birthday and therefore a national holiday.
Awesome.
But in any case, that'll be next Friday. And there is most of the states from what I've learned from Francis, and I have been trying to reach out to Francis. I was left, Lisa Walsh was supposed to include me on the list, and somehow that didn't happen. But I've asked Francis for some updates, and I have not heard back from him. I've called him several times. And so of the 10 states, Louisiana did not have anything. Mississippi did not have anything. Tennessee did not have anything. Kentucky did not have anything. And they were all missing from those fourth quarter meetings and the first monthly meeting, which was December of 2024. So I agree with that, but as that's a fairly large effort, I think internally I need to talk with my superior, Carol Zoff, and my superior, Marnie Karnowski, and ask what the effort needs to be. Wisconsin only has 7 Great River Road interpretive centers. Minnesota has 13. So that's a lot more. That's over twice the work. So, or about twice the work. So, and some of the other states have, Kentucky 2 or 3. And so that's a fairly big effort. That's a pretty extensive effort from what I started to look into. So I think that's something that needs to be discussed within MnDOT, and I need to get some direction on that. So sorry, that's all I've got.
That's a frank update and one we needed. So it'd be great if you could connect with Francis to discuss this, because the way he presented it was that, just anybody could do this if you have the data at hand. It just takes time to enter it. So it'd be good to know if that's the case. And of course, the problem with it is, who is that person to enter the data? That's our biggest problem. And Francis isn't facing anything different than the rest of us in terms of trying to get these interpretive centers and others to reply to simple requests like just, are you still out there even? So that's an ongoing issue that we have to face. Francis's goal was to have some of this done by the annual meeting at St. Francisville in September. So that was his hope and goal. So I'll let you check into that, and we'll see where we need to go as a state, so we can report back on that for Minnesota. The other thing that came up at the Culture and Heritage Committee meeting is that there's going to be, we used to have a semi-annual meeting that we'd actually get together in person. We already met twice a year. And given expenses and budgets for different organizations and having gone to Zoom, we've gone away from that. I think we're pretty permanently gone away from having a semi-annual in-person meeting. And so they're looking at a semi-annual meeting in May this year via Zoom, maybe with a focus on culture and heritage and maybe this transportation signage matter. They'd hold 2 sessions, do the same one twice, and have, try to get as many of the interpretive centers as possible to attend one of those sessions. So I haven't heard the latest on that, but that's something that the committee was talking about with the national office. David, you came in a little late, maybe that meeting.
I had to come in late. I was going to mention another thing that kind of is a through line with the signage and the 250th. One of the things that has been discussed in various 250th settings that is a little bit of an echo back to the bicentennial. One of the things that happened with the bicentennial was people thought about, what are we going to leave as a legacy to future generations? And in the history world, there were a lot of historic places that were restored, signage that was put up. So if you think about that for this effort, what are some of the things that we want to accomplish, broadly considered, that we want to leave for the next generation? And maybe something like signage is that we say, you know, we've got this great network, but the signage needs a little bit of work. So let's really use this opportunity as giving that to the next generation, getting it in good shape so it's ready. So there's probably a bunch of other things that we could think about along the river that we want to give to the next generation, but something that we can get done in that relatively short time frame of 1.5 to 2 years. So
Thanks, David. I also think that's a great suggestion for the next Culture and Heritage Committee is to, or maybe all the committees, is to talk about legacy, that legacy idea of what we want to leave. So any questions or comments from anybody out there? Okay, where are we at next? We're at Environment, Recreation, and Agriculture. Marnie, that's you. I hope the audio is working.
Holy. Have anything to report? The committee is not met. So it's very quiet.
Well, I got that your committee hadn't met with the various breaks in there, so the audio is still an issue. But since you haven't met, we got that much. Thanks. And last but not least, Transportation Committee. I think we've already kind of a little update. Anything more, Peter, on that?
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair. The big issue has been pursuing the trademark and logo for the Mississippi River Trail, that for MRPC to own that. That had been held locally. That is expiring in March. And the last I talked with Francis, they have a lawyer lined up to get that in action. And based on their budget and what their attorney has told them, there is no roadblocks that I know of to them purchasing that starting in March. It'll take about 90 days for that whole process to go through. And by that time, hopefully MRPC, the national MRPC, will then hold the logo and the trademark for the Mississippi River Trail throughout the 10 states. Minnesota already has it in place. And so therefore there's no activity on Minnesota's behalf, although we did make contributions for the legal fees to help make this happen for the whole 10 states. So I would imagine I will have an update at the next quarterly, or certainly in September, we'll have an update on that in terms of if the logo and trademark for Mississippi River Trail went through and is now held by MRPC. And therefore, this kind of gets back to what, excuse me, what Mr. Kelleher was saying is that this can be a legacy thing for the Great River Road to pass on down to the next generation. I think it's a very wise approach to do this because it was just kind of out there out in the atmosphere, floating around. And I think this is a good thing to nail down. So that's my update. And in regards to what Francis had said and what Francis had told you about at the marketing or culture and heritage, I agree it's a good idea, but I need to get guidance internally for that. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you check on the members website, there's a what's new column off to the right side, and it's got lots of good information and things that you can look into. One is, all the connections you need to make for the project Francis is working on. There's also a list for accessible scenic views, and people can start inputting accessible scenic views along the Great River Road. I don't know if we've started doing that at all, but it's something we could look at thinking about adding for Minnesota.
And that
Those
is
are all
underway. Pardon me, John. That is also underway with Tim Wilcox, who does the scenic byways. He also looks at the scenic views from the Great River Road is included in that. And he and I have had a few conversations about some of them that will be updated, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Tim is with us now, so.
Oh,
Hi, Tim.
Hello, I just popped in. Sorry I'm late. Heard my name.
Thanks for joining us. So that's the committee reports, national office reports. So let's go to the Minnesota Great River Road information tools. Chris, I will hand this over to you.
Sure, I can start the report and then welcome other committee members to jump in. So since the last meeting of the Full Parkway Commission, a committee volunteered and kindly met several times trying to work on needs related to the print maps, the website, Plan Your Trip, and the story maps, digital travel guides. So on pages 7 and 8 of your packet, you have notes from the most recent meeting of that full committee. There was an initial meeting earlier than that. Time flies. That was already back January 29th. There was a meeting prior to that. There were meetings and discussions in between, and we're grateful for help from LCC and their technical experts on IT and GIS. Chris Canty was involved. Also, Andrew from MnDOT, and Andrew Kurth, did I get that right? I'm probably, oh, good. I got the last name right from memory. That's kind of impressive. So they met with Diane and I to discuss some of these issues too. So we really appreciate everyone being involved. So on this committee, we had Diane working on it, Lisa Havelka from Tourism, Paul Huguenin from Ag, Marnie Karnowski from DOT. We also had Kate Carlson and Megan Christensen involved. Not everyone was on this last meeting where you see the notes in your packet, but it carried forward. So I didn't give you everything. We certainly could, but this is the most recent set of meeting notes. So please feel free to look through those and kind of the summary as much as you'd like. But on the second page of them, page 8 in your packet, recommendations are highlighted and also next steps. And so as this group talked about the print map, the need for Plan Your Trip and a rebuild of that, and the digital travel guide story maps, their recommendations were to proceed with a reprint of the Minnesota Great River Road print map, completed and distributed prior to the end of this fiscal year, June 30th or sooner. They recommended utilizing funds remaining in the current year MRPC budget, and then to move forward with that with quantity as budget allows. The timeline would be February through June, hoping to get those out before the summer travel season. And so Chair Housley did approve going forward with outreach on that. I can tell you more about that a little bit later. This committee also recommended proceeding with the Plan Your Trip basic rebuild, because Plan Your Trip is the main priority in terms of online Great River Road tools, route wayfinding. And I'll ask Marnie to share more about this too in a minute, but as our experts met and discussed this, it seemed that the most reasonable path forward was to proceed with Plan Your Trip and a rebuild of that so that the mapping would be maintained for the Minnesota Great River Road website. And we'll look at this in a few minutes for some feedback from you too. They also discussed story maps and wanted to chat with you all about that today and get feedback on what to do with those story maps. So they are recommending removal of the story maps from the website right now, needing discussion and help from you on if and what information or links should be included in what is now that section of the web page. These items are main features of the Minnesota Great River Road website. And so the committee recommended utilizing content already existing, either within our own website or at partner agencies. For example, Lisa Havelka from Tourism said they have articles and blogs about the Great River Road or Mississippi River in certain regions. Those regional links maybe could pop over to them instead of to these travel guides and story maps. So we'll look at those more with you coming up. Yeah, and they also recommended pursuing the least costly plan in terms of a way to keep some of this information on the website, or at least mention of the 6 regions without something that involves a major redo at this time. But again, this would need to happen no later than December of 2025 that we make that change. The committee also recommended developing a cycle for reviewing different areas of the Minnesota Great River Road website over time to allow for updates and manageable pieces in terms of effort and also budget. Things like plan your trip. If this rebuild is done now, what's the expectation? Do we put something together saying everyone will come back on this in 3 years or 2.5 or whatever the case may be, so that everyone knows when we're planning to have a relook at that. Of course, when technology issues come up, they can impact a timeline like that, but it would be something at least to start creating a cycle. So next steps they defined were that I would work with the chair, LCC, and distribution partners on the map reprint process. And so an update on that is that I did send outreach out to our distribution partners. That includes interpretive centers, community tourism offices, state parks, national parks. It's 50, closer to 60 sites up and down the river. Explore Minnesota Tourism welcome centers are also part of that. So I did send a note out to those folks asking for responses by, I believe it's next Tuesday, on the maps. If there's a reprint, would you like some? How many would you like? And what I can report is that I had about the quickest and strongest feedback on that I can recall in quite a few years. We have responses in from that would involve distribution to about 30 sites, then would be about 25,000 maps that people are asking for right now. So that was strong. So the next step would be to request pricing. Okay, what does it cost to do the reprint and then the shipping to all of those locations? And we do have some changes needed. There's a contact panel on that map that gives phone numbers and web addresses for contacts in all the regions. There are almost always changes to that over time. So we will write that into the quote for pre-press work at the printer to make those changes. And then I'll work with Peter and Carol on any other changes that might be needed, and we'll just fold that into the quote request. We'll get as many as we can. Again, unless we hear some strong change in opinion from the commission today, the chair did authorize us to go forward and get that started. I would also be asking all of you today, and I'll send follow-up as well. Would you like maps? If we're going to do a quantity, would you like some? For example, Paul at the Department of Agriculture, would he like to distribute to his sites? Or Grant and Amanda, would you like any for DNR? We'll include those in the ordering. And then it would be a one-time shipment. We won't be getting a bunch of extras that we would have on hand to ship out in August if somebody needs some then it's kind of a one-time shot using budget that you currently have available. And then my suggestion to you for the future and for this committee would be to look at how you handle this in the future. Are print maps something that you would like to build into your budget on the front end on a certain cycle rather than doing them if money is left over after other things? It kind of often has been a leftover unless there's a special funding source that comes available. The committee had quite a bit of discussion on, is print still a thing? And the answer was really yes, and maybe is becoming more so than ever, actually, the thing. And I can tell you when Itasca State Park called after that request went out, they said, we'd like at least 4,500. We go through them so fast. People use those. They want them. They look for them. They are wanting those physical pieces. So that's just to share the feedback with you that I have received. Anne.
Just a question, Chris. In addition to our partners and our ICs, do we have a certain amount set aside for what might happen as a promotion for Drive the Great River Road Month? And also for if we do another kickoff somewhere like at the state fair where we have them on hand for those kinds of events, is there some number built in for those kinds of things?
Correct. I'm building that in kind of for myself, Anne, and we'll, mention that we said for the whole summer, spring, summer, fall travel season for these maps. So we hope that folks would order enough, but we will have some extra. I just don't have storage, honestly, for 10,000 extra. But I can take in several boxes that would get us through those events, as you mentioned.
Great.
And we
Okay,
will also have some set aside if people order from the website and I fulfill those. We will have a supply that we keep on hand, but it's not going to be tens of thousands that we can ship out if Itasca runs out in September, for example. Yeah. So I will put this in our notes too, or the follow-up email that you all usually get a few days after the meeting. If you'd like some, let me know and we'll get that in the quote request, and let me know how many and where you'd like them shipped, and we'll go for it. Also, let me know if you have vendors that you would recommend. This is not a high enough ticket item to require a full state RFP process, but we do need multiple quotes. And so we will go to the printer that has done this in the past, those that have provided quotes in the past. But if any of you work with printers that you would recommend, we'd be happy to have quotes from as many as would like to provide them. So I'd love to have that info from you as well. So I guess I'll start there. That's a lot out of me, but any other comments or thoughts about the print map before we get any further down the road? Peter.
I think one thing to keep in mind is that the plan your trip is now going away in time. It's not gone yet, but it will be going away. The need for the printed map, I think it's something to keep for us to look at and see what the numbers look like before it went away and after it went away, and if there's a change in that, because my feeling is, my intuition is that there will be, but I can't say for sure. But I think it's something we need to keep an eye on.
Thank you, Peter. And we'll talk more about what's going to happen with Plan Your Trip in a minute too. There's kind of a split screen happening with the tools on the website as they are. Anyone else? If maps sound good? Okay. So we'll keep going with that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if.
Yeah, just a comment. I didn't go to the statewide tourism conference, but I looked at the agenda and there was a session on is print dead? So maybe Lisa can report back on what the answer to that question is.
Okay.
I attended that session and the answer was absolutely not. Yeah, so they definitely gave some great, I mean, the presenter focused on visitor guides specifically. So Visit Winona, we got a lot of great tips and tricks to consider, but very much print is being utilized. Folks want, in the visitor guide space, want a little bit more magazine style. So it was a lot more focus on that. But the takeaway was travelers still want that inspiration piece, want that functional piece, and they want to be off their phone. So print is alive.
And I'll add to that. I don't know if that came up at that session, but my brother's is in the newspaper business, a small town newspapers, but what he tells me is, once you're on the web and then you go off it, you're off it. But if you have something physical that's sitting on your desk or on your, next to your couch on a table, you keep seeing it. It's why magazines like LL Bean or Orbis keep sending you a catalog all the time is because if you see their catalog laying there all the time, you actually might order something from it. So same with our map. If we can put our hard copies of our stuff out there, it reminds people that we're here. So I think it has a value there as well.
Thank you. I'll just follow up too on that. Lisa did send the committee some research that she had come in like the day that we met, one of those days as a committee, and it talked about the need for print and why people like it, and that people are seeing it as an escape from the algorithms so that they can choose what they want to look at and see, and also talked about ads too, print ads, and people of Generation Z looking to that as a more reliable type of advertising sometimes than digital, which I did not expect. I thought they'd be talking about me. I didn't think they'd be talking about my niece. So that was surprising to me. But yeah, so we'll go forward with the print maps. And anyone else from the committee, if you have more to share on that, I've talked a lot about what's happened with that. That's kind of set. But then moving on to Plan Your Trip and the digital travel guides, talking about that one-to-one rebuild of Plan Your Trip, I would ask Marnie, would you be willing to share a little bit about what'll happen with that?
Sure. Can you hear me or is it breaking up? Okay, good. Good. I think it might be my docking station here, so I unplugged from that. So hopefully it's good. Okay, so thanks everybody for your patience with that. But yes, so we had conversations as Chris was talking about, And we decided that we should at least get the Plan Your Trip rebuilt, that one-to-one rebuild. And in talking with Andrew Kurth and with Carol and Peter and others in over here at MnDOT, Andrew has the capacity to take that on. He does have one other priority that he's working on to finish up, but then I gave him the go ahead, assuming this group would be good with us taking that step, but to get ready to start working on that, because it will take a few months with the hope, I told him the hope would be to have that rebuilt before the Drive the Great River Road month. That would be nice. And then perhaps if that happened, we could do kind of a kickoff and say, hey, take a look at this, and along that same time. But he does have a lot of work for MnDOT and our office, so I didn't want to put too much pressure on him, but I know he'll work to try and get that done. So I assume we see the value in the Plan Your Trip. And we even discussed, one thing we even discussed in the small group was, who knows, we might see, if it's a simpler tool, we might see more usage. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And then with the story maps, we talked about some ways, we want to maintain those somewhere, and how can we use that content, because a lot of work was put into it, and so some ideas were floated around, but we don't want to lose that altogether. But the focus would be just the rebuilding, the one-to-one rebuild for the Plan Your Trip.
Thanks, Marnie. Any questions or feedback on that? We really appreciate MnDOT providing that mapping. It's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anyone, and we'll look more at, so it's, as Marnie said, there's the Plan Your Trip online interactive mapping, and then there are the story maps. That's another piece that the committee didn't see that we could maintain right now due to the work involved. What would be involved for Plan Your Trip, and I'm just paraphrasing very roughly, but whatever hours would go into a Plan Your Trip one-to-one rebuild, you would need at least that and then some for every one of those story maps, and there are 7. And so, and probably beyond that in terms of work. So it's not something I think that anyone at the table has the resources to handle right now in time for this going to a change by January 1st. And what Andrew and Chris Canty and all the others said is that it's not like on January 1st, I think Marnie quoted it won't turn into a pumpkin. And I do like that terminology for myself. It's not going to turn into a pumpkin, go away, whatever. It won't be just gone, but it will continue to deteriorate and break over time. And then you won't be able to make fixes to it. So this new rebuild of Plan Your Trip will be a fully new model that will function before that change over time. So you'll still have the mapping. We'll go in and look at it. But what the committee is saying it does not seem realistic to do is to try to redo all those story maps at this time, and that they looked at a different way to move forward there. So Marnie, other team members, should we go ahead and look at those and see what the commission has in terms of feedback? Diane, okay for me to share my screen? Anything else, Diane, that you want to jump in? Because you've been involved in all these discussions too.
No, I think you guys described it eloquently. And again, I echo Chris's comment on appreciation of MnDOT's continued support on this one then too. But yeah, happy to contribute as much as we can, support and all that type of thing. So yeah.
And also, as we move forward, Marnie, Carol, Peter, all, as that happens, if there are things that you need from partners, from members, I'm happy to help coordinate or funnel that out to everybody or provide you with lists to do so, because I'm guessing that could that happen, that we'd need some data help from DNR or from AG or from things like that?
Right, possibly. So thank you for that offer.
Okay, so we'll watch for that and be ready to help. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, hopefully, and show you what we are talking about. So do you all see the Explore Minnesota Great River Road now on your big screen somewhere? Okay, so this is the homepage for the Minnesota Great River Road, and we had a lot of discussion about this within the committee. This website itself, the shell of it, the several sections of content, this is handled by the MRPC. It was set up with a grant or special state appropriation a few years ago when the new website was launched, new maps were printed, etc. So the website is hosted by a company called Vi that the Parkway Commission contracts with, that develop the content, etc. So the Parkway Commission is responsible for this particular piece. Much of what you see within it, though, comes from these platforms that MnDOT has kindly maintained and hosted over time. So if you look at this screen, under the About Us tab, things like About the Great River Road, hopefully this won't be too slow if I click on things to show you. These types of pages are handled by our Parkway Commission's web company. We can make changes to these. They're not going anyplace else. They're within our own website. The corridor management plan is also here. Information about the All-American Road designation is here. And I'll probably get a little too crazy with my clicking and end up in trouble, but the All-American Road information, and I'll scroll down not too quickly. There's a large photo gallery here. This is all Parkway Commission. Interpretive centers as well. When you get over here to the digital travel guides menu, those are the story maps that MnDOT has provided, with the exception of the arts attractions button that was put together as a page for Drive the Great River Road Month a few years ago. So sorry if you're like, oh yeah, boring, yeah, whatever, we know this. I'm just trying to help with the context, because we did have discussion within the committee. Okay, wait a minute, does MnDOT host the whole website, or what part does the Parkway Commission do? How does this all interface? Okay, so up in the top right corner, you see a way to access Plan Your Trip. That's another place where you would click and then you leave and you go to a website that's handled at MnDOT. You can go back to the home page and start scrolling down. So Parkway Commission content keeps on going. I will come down, Plan Your Trip interactive map. This is what Marnie was talking about. And I think you've all looked at it before with the 700 things to see and do, the mapping, the route. I won't go into that right now unless we want to a bit later. That will be rebuilt. So this section will function as it is. The top right link would function as it is. There has been some suggestion to make changes, but in terms of where you access it, but this would all stay available. Okay, I'm scrolling again, hopefully not making everybody queasy, but you get to this center part of the website where you see Headwaters, Mississippi, Northwoods, Crossings, these regional buttons, for lack of a better term. Right now, if you hover on them, it'll tell you a little bit about it, give you just a very short description of what that region is. And then when you click to explore, which I will do, it'll take a minute and it will link over to the story maps, the digital travel guides that are in ArcGIS over at MnDOT, living there. And it does take a minute for them to come up. And there's a ton of information here. It's really great information, but it's been here for quite a few years already. And there's a lot of maintenance required with or without a new platform being involved. So there's information from partners, links to partners, maps from partners, all kinds of text, all kinds of photos, lots and lots of information. Over time, there are a lot of photos that need to be changed out, links that need to be updated, information that has to be updated. And so that's part of the work here. And that's part of what will continue to deteriorate as this new platform comes to be. So once again, try to pop out of this and see if I get lucky. Yep, and pop back to the home page. What the committee is recommending is we had a few options. They asked me to get prices from our web company on taking out this whole section, so you wouldn't see any of the regional names. That was one option. Then the committee also discussed, though, leave them here as those slides or tiles for the regions, and either leave them with just the description or leave them with a link to click, but have it go somewhere else. For example, Explore Minnesota might have content, or agriculture, historical society might have content, any of our members or partners, or maybe there could be new content. And as Marty mentioned, the story maps themselves, if we do not link to them any longer from this website, they could live out there in the, cyberland, somewhere out in ArcGIS, so that we could still use that information somehow, as Marty suggested, have a way to capture pieces and parts that the committee would want to, but not keep them linked here. And they thought making that change sooner rather than later would be good. And I can tell you that in terms of funding to make those changes with the web company, this current fiscal year would continue to be a good time to do that while you know what you have available as a commission. So that's me talking a lot again, showing you a lot of stuff. Marnie, what did I miss? Diane, Kate, others.
Yeah, I think you summed it up well. So yeah, we have some options for what we want to do with this particular information while we work on getting the plan your trip switched over. So we have options.
So would you like to keep looking at this? I can't see you all at once now. I'm going to pop back to all y'all here so I can see you. And feedback from everyone is what the committee wanted today on what we do with that story map section. I think the committee made great progress on the print maps, and Plan Your Trip did a great job going through a lot of situations and information, and I think came up with a fabulous plan. Grateful to all of them. But Carl, did you have a comment? No, okay. All right, I saw you move. So we're looking for what to do with that story map section, and maybe I'll start, and I won't keep you on this forever because you can also certainly send feedback at any time, but would you like to keep those 6 boxes or just take them out? I get that's a first question. Do you like to see your regions there? And we don't have to get too far in the weeds with all this today, but we're just looking for feedback for the committee.
Chris, I like the idea of the tiles being up there. And I was wondering if we could even, you could add photos from your region and it's just a photo archive of really cool photos. I know when people see really great photos, they want to go visit those places. And so maybe some of you could even have photo contests maybe to see who can populate your different regions with the best photos in a given year. And my thank you to the committee and all the work MnDOT has done. I mean, what a tremendous amount of work that is. I love the story map section. When I was preparing for the interview with the German travel podcaster, I went through every one of them in detail, and I was telling the podcaster all about it. So, and too bad it's going away, but it's fabulous. So. I think what the direction you're headed really makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't be necessarily going away, like as Chris and Marnie talked about, we could park them and resurrect them in the future too. It's not necessarily going away, it's just looking at what resources I have right now to update the map. And a lot of this is kind of back on that GIS software update that needs to be done. And we can leave them out there, but they will, start to break. Like some of the links will start to break. But it's up to the commission what you'd like to do too.
Those are good points, Diane. My feeling is that if we leave it for a year, it's it's going to be in the closet really deep. And what I'm seeing with AI and other stuff right now, who knows what, you wait 2 or 3 years, who knows what, maybe you could do this far easier, far cheaper and update it automatically in the future. So I think let's park it and know that it's there if we want to get it, but we'll be ready to go to something new or even maybe there's something new could use that old content in a way that we can't anticipate right now. Oh, Carol, you got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. We could potentially keep those up for now because there's a few broken links, but in general, they're still working. And then if Andrew does what Marnie has asked him to. And we have this, ready, say, Augusty to launch the new plan your trip at that time, take down the story maps, because then everything's new. It's like a refresh of the whole site. I like the idea of still keeping the buttons. I'll say that. We do have the videos. They were produced in 2011, so you're still seeing people go through the lock and dam. But other than that, they're generally there and they will not break. They're just a little old. But there is one for each of the destination areas as well as an alternative.
Anybody else?
Any
Good on
other
that, Kristen.
feedback?
That's a fantastic update, and thank you for walking us through the site.
Oh, you
That
got
really
it.
made it clear.
And I'll just invite any additional feedback. Feel free to drop me a note and I will get that to the committee. We'll be calling the committee back together to take next steps on this. So we welcome your feedback. I know it's a lot to toss at you and look at on screen today, but we welcome thoughts and the committee wanted to bring that to you. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So we're going to go to the letters of support, and I'm going to ask Chris to weigh in on this too, is that we actually can't address the Leash Lake Band request. And the fact, we've had the one Democratic representative appointed, but there's another one coming from the current speaker. And that appointment hasn't been made yet. So we according to LCC, Diane, we can't vote on things that of this character at this time until that person is selected.
I can
Clarify
help with that, Jen, too. And Diane, please jump in that right now this is something LCC is looking at for all of its joint commissions while full rosters are being appointed. And so this commission is a little bit different than some of the other ones in the way they're structured, but we are still awaiting an appointment. So the commission is not at full appointed status right now. And so other than routine business like approving minutes and such, the general guidance is to hold off on other types of action until your full group is seated, which it is not right now. So though you have a quorum, we don't have everyone on roster, and so would be advised to wait. Is that correct, Diana? Correct description?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It's just, we do have other commissions that the joint office works with, Legislative Salary Commission, and other entities, lots of, like, we have 30 different commissions that we work with. So the idea is to give, where we're a little behind on the legislature, just, things are kind of, unusual year. But appointments are coming, and so we want to allow for full participation with a pending appointment that should be coming soon.
Thanks, Diane. So, Mr. Vice Chair, I can certainly share what you have before you, and you can lead discussion as you wish on that. There were two things in the packet. Okay, one was a letter for the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe. You see a letter in your packet on page 9 provided by Chair Housley. We received a request for a letter of support a couple of days prior to the application deadline in December. So there was not time to bring that to a full meeting of the commission on that timeline, but Senator Housley did provide a letter that you see here acknowledging receipt of that request and noting that partnerships have been in place and that the commission would review at their next meeting, which now would be in May. Regardless of when this would have been acted on, the application deadline has passed. So it'll be more of a follow-up type of letter, whether you would have done it now or May. So just my own opinion is that it wouldn't be a large issue at this time. Tim or Carol might be able to help on that. But this letter did go, and then in red, you see just general information for you on what the projected total cost was, how much the grant request comprised, and what the matching sources of funds were. So this is something that would be brought back to you for consideration for a full letter when the full commission is seated in May. And then on page 10, You see a letter that was provided by Chair Housley. The description of the project is on page 11. This request came into the commission also outside of a regular committee meeting timeline, but this is a project that you had approved in the past for a letter to different funding sources. And last year, I think it was May, don't quote me on that, the commission authorized the chair and vice chair to provide updated letters of support for projects that the full commission had previously reviewed and approved in the past. That's a mouthful. So this fell under that category. Vice Chair Anfinson reviewed, Chair Housley provided this letter. So that's strictly for your information and shows that the things that you act on at these meetings, it does matter because it made this all possible for a partner. And so thank you. Thank you for that. And so Mr. Vice Chair, back to you if there's anything else you'd like on that.
Anybody have any questions about those updates or the fact that we are limited in what we can vote on until we have a full commission? I think Dan did a great job of explaining it, and Chris both, so thank you. So we are done with that section pretty quickly. Any updates from our commissioners around the state? Anything cool going on where everybody is out there?
I have one, I hate to say, but it's not mine this time. Lisa Havelka was not able to join you today from Explore Minnesota Tourism, but she asked that I share with you information about a German interview that John Anfinson did about the Great River Road. And this was organized by Explore Minnesota. There was a German podcast about the Mississippi River, and John is on it. David Stevens from the Historical Society is part of that. Connie Cox from Itasca State Park and the DNR is also part of that podcast interview. Lisa says it's in German, but worth a listen. And so she also asked if we would share that with Suzanne at the national office. So I did that. And Lisa shares her thanks with John for agreeing to this interview since she couldn't be here today. And I have a link to the podcast. I'll put it all in your meeting notes so you can click on it and listen. And it's pretty cool. There is a lot of German. My German has suffered a lot since childhood and high school and college. A word here and there, that's about it. But you do hear our speakers interspersed in English throughout, and you do get kind of the gist of it, and it's pretty cool. So Lisa wanted to share thanks, and I would share thanks back to Explore Minnesota for making that all happen and connecting with speakers and promoting the Mississippi River and Great River Road. So I'll put that in your notes.
Thanks, Chris. Grant. He speaks German, maybe he's listened to it.
Danke. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. A few things from DNR. One, just want to officially say welcome and thank you to Amanda Dernberger for stepping up and taking on the appointment from our Commissioner Stroman to be our technical member. Amanda's awesome to work with. I work with her all the time. She's going to be a great addition to the group. A few items. One on the 3M PFAS settlement. Priority 2 RFP is now out and active. That's it's $20 million that's available as part of that settlement with the state for restoration and recreation. DNR and PCA are acting as sort of administrators of that grant, and it's available for application by local units of government, nonprofits, watershed districts, federal and state agencies, tribes, and schools. So just wanted to highlight that is out there and available for review. There are a bunch of stuff going on. We were fortunate to get a really generous one-time set of investments from the legislature a year ago for what we call Get Out More initiatives. And so there's too many to name, but there are a number of projects involving both boating access sites, including on the river in South St. Paul. There's a site that's on that list, enhancing access to public lands and outdoor recreation. So we have a number of projects ongoing on state parks, including one at Fort Snelling State Park on the river and many other places, enhancing fisheries and fishing infrastructure. So in other words, docks and piers and other shore fishing access opportunities, some of which will be on or near the Mississippi River. Also doing modernizing camping infrastructure and some other things. So anyway, just wanted to highlight that there's a bunch of active work we're investing in improving the experience for folks who are on or near the river throughout the state. And then two other Mississippi River related meetings that are coming up that I just wanted to highlight for the group. The Upper Mississippi River Basin Association has its quarterly meeting next Tuesday on February 25th. That's an online only meeting. If you're interested or have a staff person who's interested, have them send me a note and or you can look up. Anyone's welcome to attend the meeting, but you do need to register in advance to be let in. And then the other one, the Upper Mississippi River Conservation Committee is having their 80th annual meeting in La Crosse, March 19th and 20th. And that will be conservation folks, agencies, nonprofits, and all kinds of other folks involved in Upper Mississippi River from the 5-state region. So that's coming up in March. And that's all for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Grant. What a great bunch of updates. That was awesome. And I just have to mention that German podcast. It was very short. I was like 15 or 16 minutes, and I studied the Great River Road all through Minnesota in extreme detail for this. And I you know, you don't realize that the Rhine in Germany is only 540 miles, and the Mississippi in Minnesota is 600 and what is it? I've only lost 560 some miles. And so I was all prepared for like an hour-long interview, and it got about 15 minutes. So I hope it did come out well for them. And I want to mention that, David, next Monday, I'm going to be doing a podcast, more local, for Minnesota Unraveled, which is a Minnesota Historical Society podcast. And they want to talk to me specifically about the Mississippi River in Minnesota and how we've changed and transformed the river. So maybe I'll try to sneak in a Great River Road mention. No, the German podcast, everything I did for that will help me down the road. It was a really good exercise. So I don't know much about the Minnesota Unraveled podcast overall, but it's so far what I've seen it. They're very, very professional. Anybody else have any updates?
Great job, John.
Well,
John, I've got a couple of things.
Oh, David, you guys, go ahead.
Yeah, two things real quick. Last time, I think I mentioned that there's a proposed development adjacent to the Oliver Kelly Farm in Elk River. So we're tracking that. There's really not a lot new on that, but I and a couple of colleagues have attended Elk River Planning Commission and City Council meetings to just make sure that that doesn't have a detrimental effect on the visitor experience at the Oliver Kelly Farm. We did learn that the project proposer is having to do an EAW, and since it is on the Wild and Scenic River, that DNR is doing some reviews. So Amanda and Grant, maybe I'll check in offline to just learn what you guys are learning through that process. So 500 homes, there's a planned park that would be part of that, and there's a long way to go before the city would approve it, but just want to make sure it's done right. So second item, I don't know if there's any questions or other observations on that.
I don't know if Grant, is the DNR tracking that at all?
I can't speak to it specifically at this time, but I'm happy to follow up with you on it, David.
Great.
You can do that directly with David. I would.
Thank you.
So,
yeah, that'd be great. Second item, I think the leading candidate for Drive the Great River Road Month in September is a history theme, and Chris, we'll get back in touch. My colleague Laura Reller was involved in tabling at the statewide tourism conference, so now that she's passed that, she can come up for air, and we'll get her attention and start planning for Drive the Great River Road Month, and use the great work that you guys have done between DNR and Ag and others as a model for what we attempt to do.
I'm sure you'll do a
Great.
fantastic
Thanks.
job. If you need help from people on the commission, just let us know. Any other updates from other regions or organizations? Not, I hope you all enjoy the warmer weather that's coming. I got a new furnace, right? You know, a huge new furnace right before the first cold weather. And it's like, I'm glad I got it.
Exactly.
Well, thank you all. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thank you all.
Good to
Take
see
care.
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, we're adjourned. Officially adjourned.
Oh,
We gotta
yeah.
do the gavel. Not used to
Thanks,
that.
John.
That was one of
Nice.
the throwaway.
Nicely done, John. Thank you.
Oh, that's funny. It's here, I turned off I left it on my computer. I didn't realize I hadn't left it out there. So Chris, you're
Thanks,
still with us.
everybody.
How you doing? Great job, Chris. So as always,
Great job, everybody. Quorum. Thanks so much. Bye.
oh, there you are. You are still there.
Thank you,
Good.
Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much. And good luck with everything.